Most families have their traditions, right? Maybe it's a weekly board game night or a special meal during the holidays. But what if your family tradition was a little different? What if it was a competitive sport where the entire goal was to create the most incredible, jaw-dropping train crash you could possibly imagine? Well, for one family in San Diego, that was real life. Let's get into it.
Yeah, that wasn't something you'd hear on a typical Saturday afternoon. That was the official call to arms. It was the starting pistol for the Great Train Crash Championships. See, in this house, toy trains weren't just meant to go around in perfect little circles. No, no. They had a much more glorious destiny, controlled destruction. And when you heard that announcement, you knew the battle was on.
So, you're probably wondering, how on earth does a family get to the point where they're holding demolition derbies with model trains? Well, it definitely didn't happen overnight. It all started out pretty innocently, actually. Just a single Lionel train set, sitting under the Christmas tree. That one Christmas gift, that was just the beginning. It was the spark that lit the fuse. Soon, every spare cent from birthday money and allowances was funneled into the cause. The family started making these regular trips, these pilgrimages, to a place called Frank's Train Store. And bit by bit, that single train set grew into this massive, sprawling railroad empire that literally took over the sunroom and the living room. It even had dual control systems, which, as you can imagine, were absolutely essential for some head-to-head combat. Now, every great sport needs its star players, its biggest rivals. And at the very heart of these championships were two brothers, 17-year-old Randy and 14-year-old Stan. And let me tell you, this was not just some friendly game. This was a fierce rivalry, and each of them had a totally different approach, a whole different philosophy when it came to the art of destruction. Oh, it was the absolute ultimate clash of styles. You had Randy, who they called the torpedo. He was the strategist. He was all about the angles, the velocity. He'd operate his sleek little diesel engine with mathematical precision. And then you had his rival, Stan, the thunderbolt. He was all about raw power, pure aggression. He'd just send his massive steam locomotive barreling down the track, relying completely on gut instinct and these lightning-fast reflexes. It was a classic showdown, brains versus brawn. And don't for a second think this was just some random, chaotic mess. Oh no. They had an official, written-down scoring system. You got points for spectacle, how dramatic the crash looked. You got points for derailment, the number of cars you could send flying off the track. And even for distance, how far the wreckage scattered from the point of impact. This was serious business. Randy even kept a notebook where he tracked all the stats, the wins, the losses. This was a legit competitive sport. But this whole championship thing, it wasn't just a two-man show. That competitive energy, it was infectious. And pretty soon the entire family had a role to play. I mean, everyone, from their dad all the way down to their 5-year-old little brother, became a part of the whole ritual. The official starter for every single match was their dad, Fred, and he totally got into it. He fully embraced the whole spirit of the game. When he shouted his classic starting call, it just gave the whole event this feeling of importance, He was kind of like the proud, enthusiastic commissioner of this very unique family league. And then you had 5-year-old Scott. He was basically the entire audience packed into one person. He was the official sound effects guy, and he was also the post-crash inspector. He would rush over to every collision, yelling crash, boom, bang at the top of his lungs, and then give his expert 5-year-old analysis of the wreckage. He just added this whole other layer of pure joy to the drama. And of course, we have to talk about their mom, Betty. Her role was, it was one of amused tolerance. She'd throw out a gentle reminder to be careful, but everybody knew she was probably more worried about the hardwood floors than the trains, which were surprisingly tough. She was really the calm, patient voice in the middle of all that wonderful chaos. But as fun and crazy as this all sounds, there was actually something more going on here amidst all the clattering of plastic and metal. These championships, in their own chaotic way, were actually an incredible classroom. I mean, think about it. This was a hands-on education you just can't get in a school. Through a game they invented themselves, Randy was learning about physics, about calculating the perfect collision. Stan was sharpening his reflexes and his competitive instincts. And they were both learning engineering as they were constantly rebuilding the track layout to create even better crashes. And together, they learned about teamwork and about the pure joy of a shared passion that they created all on their own. Over the years, the house itself kind of became a scrapbook of this tradition. The floors had all these little scratches and worn spots from all the railroad activity, but they weren't seen as damage, not at all. They were badges of honor, these little physical reminders of the joyful, competitive chaos that once filled those rooms. So in the end, the Great Train Crash Championships were so much more than just a game. They were this amazing testament to a simple idea, that the best kind of fun, the most memorable kind, is the kind you make up yourself, with rules that might look totally bizarre to anybody on the outside, but that make perfect sense to the people who invented them. And that really makes you think, doesn't it? We all had those games, those weird backyard sports, those super elaborate make-believe worlds with rules that only we and our friends understood. What were yours? What championships did you hold that only live on in your memory now, and in the memories of the people you played with?